Madam Mayor, you are live and recording. You can begin whenever you wish. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome, everyone. Of course, this is your regular council meeting for November the 5th. Just remind everyone, of course, that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. Will be available online following this. And right on cue, we have people from Zoom as well as within the council chambers this evening. Council, of course, as is always the case, please raise your hand when you wish to speak on a matter, and I will call on you at the appropriate time. And we'll just get started by calling the roll. Yeah, we'll get started. Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Present.
Councilor Watt.
Present.
Councilor Johnston.
Present.
Do we have Councilor Vervoort on Zoom? Not yet. Okay. Myself, of course, Heather Watson, and we have our clerk at WCAO, Martina J. Cartwright, and we have our new Davis.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Our treasurer, I'm trying to go through our treasurer, Paul Kramer. Hello, our planner, Christina Coulter. Present. And our CDO, Don Hellman. Hello and welcome. And of course, I will just take a moment to give a warm welcome to Todd. You've joined us now. You're what, 12 days into roughly 14, 16 days in. So welcome to your first council meeting.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you. So a quorum of council in attendance, there's Councilor Vervoort. Hello. So we do have a quorum of council in attendance, so I will call the meeting to order, beginning with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. And on that, we'll just pause for a moment of silence. Okay. Moving on our agenda, of course, council, the agenda was distributed to you in advance of the meeting. I don't believe there's been any disclosure of pecuniary interest, but if there is, this would be the time to declare that. Seeing nothing, could I please get an adoption of tonight's agenda? Councilor Watt, seconded by Councilor Vervoort, all in favor, and that motion carries. On to the adoption of the minutes and business arising from the minutes. We have simply our regular council meeting minutes of October 15th. Just move a motion to receive and approve those. Councilor Johnston, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? And that motion carries. We do have 3 items on consent. Is there any item that council would like to hold for discussion later in the meeting? Seeing nothing, then just a motion to receive receive and approve those. Councilor Vervoort, seconded by Councilor Johnston, all in favor, and that too carries. On to section 8 of the agenda, we have delegations, petitions, presentations, public meetings. We do have a couple of public meetings, so we will begin with 8.1 public meeting zoning bylaw amendment file R1224. And we just need a motion to open the public meeting. Councilor Watt, Councilor Johnston, all in favor, and that motion carries. And I will hand it over to Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, members of council, staff, and the public. This is the public meeting for our proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number R-12-24. Council has before them report planning 2024-26 with the recommendation that report planning 2024-26 dated November 5th, 2004 regarding zoning bylaw amendment file R-12-24 be received, and that council receive all comments related to zoning bylaw amendment file R-12-24, and that the bylaw to enact the amendment be passed at the appropriate time in the meeting. On behalf of the owners, Mike and Robin Earnshaw, their agent, Josh Bootsma, has applied to amend the existing zoning on their property known municipally as 1450 Mill Line Road. Martina, I'm not sure if Robin is in attendance today. She might have been joining virtually. Notice of the public meeting and complete application was given on October 11th, 2024 by ordinary mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Ontario Planning Act. Notices were also posted on the subject property and on the township website. The subject property is currently zoned environmental conservation provincially significant wetland and the special district 114 zone. A portion of the property was originally rezoned to a special district zone through bylaw number 1999-31 to permit the construction of a honey house prior to the erection of a residence on the property. A building permit was issued on June 3rd, 1999 to construct an approximately 600 square foot honey house. The owners wish to convert the existing structure on the property from a honey house to a single detached dwelling, and they're also proposing an approximately 680 square foot addition to the east of the existing structure. The zoning bylaw amendment is required to allow the existing structure and the addition to be used as a single detached dwelling. So the zoning bylaw proposes to rezone portions of the subject property from the special district 114 zone to the residential zone to permit the conversion and expansion of the existing building so that it can be used as a single detached dwelling. And then portions of the property are proposed to be rezoned from the special district 114 to the environmental conservation provincially significant wetland zone to recognize the findings of the wetland assessment that was submitted, excuse me, in support of the application. Council has a copy of the draft bylaw. As of the writing of this report, there was one comment received from a member of the public. The owner of 1480 Mill Line Road provided written correspondence in support of the application. The correspondence indicated they had no objection to the application, but they did object to the time wasted in the bureaucracy created by Douro-Dummer. Comments were received from the following agencies. Bell Canada had no comment, Enbridge Gas had no objections, the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. Mapping indicates that the proposed development is located within a known hazard. The property is traversed with wetland features which are associated with flooding and unstable soils. The application provided a wetland assessment for the property which did not provide the necessary information to properly identify the wetland boundaries on the site. However, the draft bylaw is proposing to rezone the provincially significant wetland and a 30-meter buffer, and Orca staff are of the opinion that that is sufficient to cover the feature and the buffer area associated with the hazards. Therefore, it's the opinion of the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority that the application is consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement referencing natural hazards. Orca reviewed the application through their mandated responsibility under regulation 686/21 and confirmed the application is not creating new or proposing to aggravate existing natural hazards. Orca mapping indicates that the lands are partially subject to Ontario Regulation 41/24, which is their prohibited activities, exemptions, and permits regulation. Permits from Orca may be required prior to site alteration or construction in those regulated areas. The subject property is not located within a vulnerable area that is subject to Trans-Source Protection Plan policies, and significant drinking water threats are not possible, and a restricted land use notice is not required. The application was circulated to senior staff on October 11th, and there were no concerns identified. As proposed, the draft bylaw is consistent with the 2024 provincial planning statement and conforms to the official plan. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Watson, for any questions from council or public.
Thank you very much, Ms. Coulter. Council, are there any questions of staff?
I just got a question now. Now, when they go for the septic, they're saying that the Orca's got to come and approve it, is what they're saying, because of the wetlands?
through you, Mayor Watson, to Councillor Johnson. So Orca is saying that a permit may be required from their agency if any of the proposed development is within the regulated area on the property. So at this point, they haven't specifically identified or applied for a septic permit to the best of my knowledge, but if and when they do, it may require a permit from Orca.
Okay, so who decides that? You gotta, would you be going out and looking at it and then saying that you can do it or can't do it, or who looks at it to help people, just as they'll know?
Directed that through the mayor, Councilor Johnson. So if there's regulated area on the subject property, which this has, it gets sent to Orca to decide whether they require a permit or whether they give a clearance that says that the development's outside the regulated area and therefore a permit's not required. So typically the property owner, we would send them towards Orca and do that. And yeah, Orca makes the decision on whether the permit's required.
Okay, any other questions from council? Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Christina, for that detailed report. I think, unless I didn't hear it correctly, at first you said that this honey house was built and then prior to a structure, prior to a home being built or whatever. So is this kind of, it was a honey house and now this addition, that's just going to be the structure that's going to be the house, or have there been plans to have a house previously plus this honey house?
Thank you, Mayor Watson, through you to Councillor Watt. Correct. The rezoning originally was to allow the honey house to be built before a residence on the property. So the owner of the property had beekeeping and desired to have a structure for the processing of the honey on the property. So the rezoning allowed to have that structure built before a house was built on the property. There was never a house built on the property. Whether the building was being used for habitation, where if it was, that wasn't permitted through a building permit or through the zoning. The zoning was specifically to allow the honey house before a residence on the property.
Thank you. And the reason I asked that question is because we had another instance here, since I've been on council, that people wanted to build an accessory structure before the house got built. So they got the township required to have a down payment, like a certain amount of money put down to guarantee that they were going to go ahead with the structure until they got. So I just want to make sure that we're staying consistent with that type of thing, and that had to come to council for approval. So I don't know how long it's been on there, but I just want to make sure that we are staying on track and doing the same thing with each person that kind of comes with that request.
Now through you, Mayor Watson. So that rezoning was done, I think it was in 1999. In the roll file, in my review of the file, there was no record of any conditions that would tie the owner to actually build the house, or for any deposit that would ask them to build the house within a certain amount of time, or if it wasn't built.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council questions? Is the owner or agent here and wants to speak on that? Okay. Is there anybody present or online who wants to speak? Anybody else? Seeing nothing, we just want to close the public meeting at this point. Then. Councillor Watt and Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? And that motion carries. And since there's nobody waiting for us to pass a bylaw, we can do that at the end of the meeting with the rest of the bylaws. So then we just need a motion to receive the report and comments as well. Deputy Mayor Nelson, second by Councillor Johnston, all in favor, and that motion carries. Okay, on to our second public meeting, zoning bylaw amendment file R1324. A motion to open this public meeting. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councillor Johnston, seconds, all in favor, and that carries. And again, I'll hand it over to Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, members of council, staff, and the public. This is the public meeting for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file R-13-24. Council has before them report planning 2024-27 with the recommendation that report planning 2024-27 dated November 5th, 2024 regarding zoning bylaw amendment file R-13-24 be received, and that council receive all comments related to zoning bylaw amendment file R-1324, and that the bylaw to enact the amendment be passed at the appropriate time in the meeting. On behalf of the owner, Deborah Sandeman, her agent, Holly Richards Conley, applied to amend the existing zoning on the property known municipally as 800 Canal Road. I believe Deb and Holly are both online in attendance today. Notice of the public meeting and complete application was given on October 15th, 2024 by ordinary mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Planning Act. Notices were also placed on the subject property and on the township website. The subject property is zoned Special District 155. The property was originally rezoned to a special district zone through bylaw 2007-94 to facilitate the issuance of a building permit for the construction of a 616 square foot, 2-story single detached dwelling. The owner wishes to construct a 2-story single detached dwelling with a ground floor area of approximately 1,445 square feet and a gross floor area of approximately 2,403 square feet. The owner is seeking relief from the minimum front, rear, and side yard requirements, the maximum first-story floor area, lot coverage, and height requirements, and to recognize the existing lot area of the subject lands to accommodate the proposed construction. The zoning bylaw proposes to revise the Special District 155 zone to permit the construction of the single detached dwelling and related private services. The Special District 155 zone is proposed to be amended to recognize deficiencies in lot area and yard setbacks and increases for the maximum first-story floor area, maximum lot coverage, and maximum height. Council has a copy of the draft bylaw attached to the report. As of the writing of this report, staff received one phone call from a member of the public who is the owner of 810 Canal Road. No concerns were identified, but they did inquire about the number of bedrooms and bathrooms proposed, excuse me, for the new dwelling. After the writing of this report, written comments were also received from the same member of the public. If council would like, I can summarize those comments as follows. 2 test holes for the property were not in the area of the proposed septic bed. The site plan does not include the elevation of the lot. The applicant has dumped 2 truckloads of fill with the intention of making the lot higher than the neighbors. Swales should be mandatory on north, south, and east borders to solve the water runoff problem. The site plan does not show driveway length and width. The site plan does not show distance from Trent Canal, bracket 30 meters is required. The site plan does not show the location of the wells at 810 Canal Road and 796 Canal Road. The well at 796 Canal Road is less than 15.2 meters from the proposed septic bed. The owner of 796 Canal Road has said he will move his well, but hasn't applied to do so. It is questionable whether he has enough land to do so. This building application is not dependent on him moving his well. The site plan does not show the location of the proposed well. The new well needs to be a minimum of 15.2 meters from the current well at 810 Canal Road. The site plan does not show the distance from the end of the septic bed to the culvert that goes under the road directly into the Trent Canal. The site plan does not indicate how many bedrooms and bathrooms. The township tells me 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. According to the building code, septic systems are calculated on number of bedrooms and bathrooms. This system must also be built to the maximum use probability in case the home is sold in the future. For example, the second floor could easily accommodate 4 bedrooms or an apartment. Therefore, the maximum septic system should be applied. The amendments are not minor adjustments. We oppose the amendments to decrease the minimum lot area from 768 square meters to 766 square meters, to decrease the minimum rear yard from 11 meters to 4 meters, since building that close to our fences and shed would undermine them, to increase the maximum first-story floor area from 58 square meters to 134 square meters. This is 230% higher than the official plan recommends. To increase the maximum lot coverage from 7.5% to 17.5%, This is 233% higher than the official plan recommends. To increase the maximum height from 9 meters to 9.1 meters. To decrease the minimum setback for a septic system from a public road from 15 meters to 6 meters. 6 meters is too close. The culvert beside the road goes into the Trent Canal. To decrease the minimum south side yard from 6 meters to 1.5 meters. The applicant owns the property to the south and no allowance should be made. To decrease the minimum north side yard from 6 meters to 5 meters, this house is too large for this lot. We request that the application for septic be sent to the federal and Ontario Ministries of the Environment for approval. Canal Road is under the federal ministry as well as Ontario Ministry. The proposed upstairs bedroom is approximately the same square footage as the house at 810 Canal Road. 796 and 800 Canal Road are owned by the same people but different names. It is probable that one of the properties will either be rented or sold. As such, the new building should adhere to the present zoning bylaws. And the owner of 800 Canal Road, excuse me, was aware of the limitations on the property when she purchased. Comments were also received from the following agencies. Bell Canada had no comments. The City of Peterborough had no comments or concerns in relation to the proposed rezoning application. Enbridge Gas had no objections to the application. Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board had no concerns or issues with the proposed application related to their mandate. Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. Orca mapping indicates that the proposed development is not located within a known natural hazard. Therefore, it is the opinion of Orca that the application is consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement referencing natural hazards. Orca has reviewed this application through their mandated responsibility under Ontario Regulation 686/21. This application is not creating new or proposing to aggravate existing natural hazards. Orca mapping indicates the lands are partially subject to Ontario Regulation 41/24, which is their prohibited activities, exemptions, and permit regulations. Permits from Orca may be required prior to any site alteration or construction in those areas, in those regulated areas. The subject property is not located within a vulnerable area that is subject to Trent Source Protection Plan policies. Significant drinking water threats are not possible, and restricted land use notice is not required. The application was circulated to senior staff on October 15th, and there were no concerns identified. However, during circulation, staff recommended that the requested maximum lot coverage of 17.51% be increased to 17.6% to allow some minor flexibility for the proposed development. So as a result of that, the draft bylaw was revised accordingly, and that's what's before council tonight. Now, as proposed, the draft bylaw is consistent with the 2024 provincial planning statement and conforms to the plan. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Watson, for any questions from council and the public.
Thank you very much, Ms. Coulter. Okay, at this point, is the owner or the owner agent, they're here, would either like to speak on the matter?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. My name is Holly Richards-Conley, and I am the agent for the Sandemans. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As Ms. Coulter noted in her presentation, we are proposing a single detached dwelling on a vacant lot at 800 Canal Road. And I'd just like the opportunity to address some of the comments from the neighboring property owner and to provide council with a few more details. After pre-conning with the township staff, it was determined that the house and septic locations should be swapped for a better fit. Originally, we had the house closer to the road and the septic to the rear. So after the pre-consultation meeting, we swapped those. So the septic is a little bit closer to the road. The septic is approximately 38 meters from the edge of the canal at the front of the property, and the house is approximately 51 meters from the canal. The septic bed, as shown on the site plan, will be constructed to meet the water table requirements of the property, which the test holes, which she talked about a little bit, indicated where that was. So the septic design has been designed to meet those water table requirements. The lot grading will align with the neighboring property to the south, and the grading of the property, the final grading, will include swales to all adjacent properties and the canal. Bill Burgess of Burgess Wells will be handling all of the MOE well permits and relocations. Based on some mapping that they did, he's decommissioning the well at 796 and moving it to a new location, in addition to establishing the new well to the rear of the house at 800 Canal. Both wells have approximately 18 meters from any septics along Canal Road, which the minimum is 15. So we're more than 3 meters away from the bare minimum. So just addressing her well comments. The neighbor also raised several points in opposition specific to sort of rear yard setbacks, side yard setbacks. One of the concerns she had was her fence. That fence has fallen down a few times. And so the Sandemans have just decided that on their side of the property, they'll likely establish their own fence so that they don't have to deal with the neighboring fence line that has already fallen down. And while the official plan was referenced by the neighbor, the zoning bylaw is what sets the standards for all of the reliefs that we're asking for this project. The proposed lot coverage is 7.51% or 7.6, as senior staff have recommended, is quite typical for residential lots. I looked at the zoning bylaw last night. Rural residential, hamlet, lakeshore residential, all have 15% lot coverage maximums. So we're kind of in line with that 15%. I did take a peek at the neighboring properties along Canal Road today, and they range everywhere from 10%, 14%, 796 is approximately 23% lot coverage. So it fits in with the characteristics of this neighborhood. And I'm just here to answer any further questions that council may have.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions from council at this point? Councillor Johnson.
Through the chair. My question is that earlier was read, and I see that it's 6 feet the septic that is proposed, 6 feet. Is that from the canal or is that from the road? Is that 6 meters? 6 meters. Is that from the road or the canal?
Through you, Mayor Watson, to Councillor Johnson, the 6 meter setback is from the front lot line, not from the canal.
From the road.
Yes. From the front lot line that abuts the road.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, is that taken into account the new 3 meters that we have exchanged for that under the bylaw?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Watson, to Deputy Mayor Nelson. The report references that the new bylaw that council has passed, the appeal period expires today for that bylaw. It would have allowed that setback to be a minimum of 3 meters. However, in this case, 6 meters is still recommended due to the fact that it's a raised septic bed. It will require a greater setback. And in addition, that was the requirement that was outlined by our manager of public works when we did the pre-con because of the ditches that are present along the road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing nothing, is there anybody in the room or online who would like to comment on the application that's before us? Sorry,
Sure.
just for the record, if you could state your name.
I'm Tony DiCarlo. I'm representing the neighbor at 810 Canal Road. But we're, under my understanding, she doesn't, we're not trying to stop them from building, but it just seemed like the plan was incomplete, which it sounds like Holly answered some of those questions about what was the long she had on her errors and omissions here that Christina had read out. It just appeared to be incomplete with her concerns and stuff like that. That's what her issues were about the well and everything she mentioned in her matter there.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. DiCarlo. You have your hand up as well, Mr. Monahan?
So I'm Jim Monahan, the contractor on this project, or general contractor on it. The the septic system, which has obviously been a big issue in this whole project. Understand that that's a water biofilter system, so it's specifically designed for even closer water protected areas. And this has all been handled and dealt with through drains excavating. And so Scott has developed that system with water biofilter system, and it has a shed protection system in it, special filters. So that really looked after all the issues, even though we've kept a separate setback because we want to raise that lot some. But very, very conscious, the homeowners were very conscious about making sure that the swales stay in there and all, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then just beautifying the back of the lot with the fence rebuild.
Yeah.
If possible, take that one down if possible, if they're willing.
Yeah.
And then we put up something that's nice.
Yeah.
And, because that one is pretty well quality.
Yeah, it's been there for a few years, so.
And there was a comment asked about, made about a bunch of fill that's been left on the lot.
Okay,
So on the original property of, John's. When the garage was built on the property, we put some of that over there just for a place to store it.
okay,
So a lot of that won't be left there because there is some concrete stuff in it, which will be sorted through and clean out.
sure.
So that is all, and then it'll get the proper fill. I've been told very strongly from drains that, what has to go in the front yard for the septic system. So that's all been, I think we've looked after their concerns, which, great concerns.
Yeah, absolutely, and this,
Okay.
I'm not sure if she's watching or not, but
Okay.
yeah, I can come back to her with
I think it's been very good what you've
some
asked.
happy news, yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other comments from the public or online? Madam Clerk, anybody online that you noticed? Okay, thank you. So with that, we need to close the public meeting. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is that a motion to close the public meeting? Seconded by Councillor Johnston. All in favor? That motion carries. Now at this point, we do need to receive the report and all comments. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Report. All in favor? That too carries. And since there are a number of people who are waiting and watching and wondering about the bylaw, shall we move forward with the bylaw at this point in time? No?
I'll also move the recommendation of the bylaw.
To approve the bylaw?
To approve. One second.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Watt.
Thank you very much. I know this project's been an ongoing system for quite some time, and I'm glad to see it finally coming to an end. And I commend both parties here. I mean, it really, really looks like that you guys or you people have worked together to make sure that all these concerns are solved through the township, through the landowner, through the contractor, everyone. Like, so I'm really, really glad to see this in a public meeting that, that it doesn't get into a crazy match. Things get resolved and things get organized the way they should, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Watt. Any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Then I will call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Did we close the public meeting? We did close the public meeting. Okay, moving on. We have a presentation from Lois Wallace and Ross Moore with the Environment Council for Clear, Stony, and White Lakes. I believe they're all online apparently. And I believe it's Ross Moore, who's the chair of the group, who will be speaking today. Yes. We're here. Here we are. Welcome, both. Now, who has the presentation? Are we loading it up? You do? Okay. Can both of you hear us at this point? Rosalind, Lois? Okay, Lois, you're muted, but I saw you say yes, so I know at least you can hear us. It doesn't look like Rosalind can hear us, though. We don't know. Are you able to sound the room? Rosalind, can you hear us?
Yes.
There we are.
Is there,
Okay.
is there a problem with the getting the PowerPoint up?
Nope, not at all. We just wanted to make sure that you were ready for us to begin. So we do have 10 minutes on the agenda for your presentation. I believe the clerk is going to be.
There we go. Here it comes. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Please proceed when you're ready.
Shall we start? Lois, I just want to remind you to undo your get your your vocal going. You just remove it. Okay. You can't speak at this point. There we go.
So,
Thank you. Okay.
so Rosalind, are you presenting or is Lois presenting?
So I'd like to start just to say thank you to Mayor Watson for welcoming us from the Environment Council for Clear, Stony, and White Lake. We're here to talk about Kawartha Lake's health and value. Our last presentation to Douro-Dummer Council took place 2 years ago. In 2022, we focused on the same topic, basically, that we'll be talking about tonight. We're pleased to return actually to discuss important changes that have taken place in the municipal and provincial policy, and this affects shoreline conservation. These changes provide a necessary and important role for the municipal council in supporting lake preservation. So that's what we're heading off for tonight. My name is Rosalind Moore. I'll review a few basic shoreline features and a little bit of science in the first half of the presentation. We have about 4 minutes altogether to get ourselves organized. Oh, 10 minutes, I'm sorry. It's 10 minutes. So I'll just steam ahead here. In the second half of the presentation, Lois will be summarizing details of current policies accessible to council for improving conservation for shorelines and shorelands. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to read this, but I'll just say that's important. This is a phrase that's often used in science to describe shorelines and shorelands. That's the first 30 meters back from the water's edge, and it's also referred to as the riparian zone. Those are all the benefits that we obtain over protecting natural shorelines. An important point to make here is that there's reference here to property values, municipal tax base, and lake-based economy. They all depend on and can only be maintained by healthy lake shorelines and water quality. So that's the point of that. I'm going to just move here. I only see my name here. Okay, so 2 important factors in this study: the difference between natural and altered or disturbed shorelines. And I'm on slide number 3. Is that correct?
Yep, we've got you.
Are you on shoreline? Okay, great. So these are all obvious things. I'm sure you've all been, aware of these descriptions of natural shorelines. But there's reference here to the 30-meter setback zone, and that will be discussed by Lois. But basically, those are the 2 differences between natural and altered shorelines. We see a lot of altered shorelines in an area where there's a lot of construction taking place, but that's not limited to that at any rate. So let's go down to the next slide, which is a picture really of what's happening. Natural shorelines protect water quality and preserve water in the soil. That's really important, particularly for people who are trying to grow plants or flowers or other kinds of things on the ground. There's a 50%, as you can see there. It says 40%. Where is that? 50%. Well, it's on oh, it's in infiltration. 50% absorption of water, a 10% runoff of polluted water. And then you compare that with disturbed shorelines, and it's almost in reverse, 15% of water absorption and 55% of runoff. So that gives you an idea of, sort of basic general differences between natural and disturbed shoreline, but they're important differences. And finally, I want to talk to you a little bit about some study that we took on also in 2022. The Environment Council partnered up with Kawartha Land Trust and Fleming College to do a study of the shorelines on Stony Lake and Clear Lake. And the goal was collection and mapping of, and I guess you're going to guess this, the two main factors, natural and altered disturbed shorelines. So we're very fortunate to have some motivated and very competent students in the mapping program. And they were using something called GIS, Geographic Information Systems. It's a geographic way, a form of collecting data. And what they did was they got into some small boats to collect satellite and ground truth data, and then they developed maps. Now, I'm going to get us over to next to the final map here that I'll be talking about. Can we do that? And there we go. So the goal of this study was to collect shoreline focused on those two alternatives. And here in the map, you can see the red line is showing you where there's a lot of change, and it's really, again, what we're calling altered or disturbed shoreline. In the green areas, you've got a lot of natural shorelines. A few left in Upper Stony, but it's, most of it is around in the middle part here. And around over on the north side. So we had a lot of information. What are we doing with the results? How are we using the data? What we've found is that it provides support in communicating the need for improved conservation policy. It provides a source of education to support community and lake residents about the importance of natural vegetation and wildlife needing preservation, and the need to protect water quality and property value. So those are sort of the descriptive problems or descriptive concepts to look at these lakes and wonder about how they are doing. And Lois is going to take over now and talk to you a little bit about our hope that the changes in policy will help to support the council's efforts to do the same thing on land and in the water so that things pursue. Thank you so much. Onward.
Lois, you've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. 4 minutes.
Okay, I cannot see myself. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay,
don't worry.
As long as you can see me, that's good. Next slide, please. As you can see, some development really makes a mess of shorelines. This is just one individual shoreline on Clear Lake. There are many elsewhere, heavily damaged by building and rebuilding projects. There's another example right now on Weetung Road where a huge area has been cleared, almost the size of a football field. This can't continue. Next, please. There definitely is growing support for shoreline regulation as damage continues to be done. This was a survey of municipal planners, elected officials, and lake associations. which identified a clear need for regulation. And this summer on Stony, more than 300 families donated $1.5 million to protect the forest and natural shoreline. So certainly many lake residents do want to see shorelines protected. Our local lake associations, the 4 in Douro-Dummer are listed here, are very concerned about the extensive damage being done. And we did submit support letters from these associations, where they said they agreed with the need for shoreline protection regulation. Next, please. So do we have the right shoreline protection tools in place? Well, no. There's no regulation in place to prevent damage to shorelands on individual lots. A lot of damage is done by new owners who want a prestigious look with little regard for the natural environment. Builders tend to clear just about everything out of the way to make the job easier, and there's nothing to stop them. And we know from years of effort that education by itself isn't enough to prevent this kind of damage. As well, voluntary shoreline restoration programs aren't enough to outweigh the new damage that's being done. So prevention of damage is really key. Next slide. So what do our lakes need? We need protection of individual waterfront properties during building and rebuilding, retention and enforcement of the 30-meter waterfront setback in the official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaws. We need protection of native vegetation and natural landscape in 75% of shoreland within the setback zones. Importantly, we need you to maximize the protections that you can provide under the new provincial legislation. The key point here is that the legislation does give you the flexibility to protect all residential shorelands. The new PPS provides for protection of natural heritage and water. The Planning Act and the prescribed areas in Regulation 25423 allows site plan control to be applied to all waterfront properties. It's important to realize that the definition of development as more than 10 residential units does not apply in prescribed areas, which is any area within 120 meters of a lake, wetland, river, or stream. Next, please. There's a number of examples of municipal regulations already in place. Some of these have been in place for quite a number of years. And we recommend that the township review these examples, especially the Halliburton bylaw. That is really the most comprehensive, I think it's fair to say. And some townships like Muskoka Lakes use their preservation bylaws in combination with site plan control. Next, please. So what action needs to be taken? Shoreline damage is increasing with increasing negative impacts on lake water quality. So we're asking you to take immediate action. Please pass a motion today recognizing the need for new, stronger shoreline regulation and asking staff to recommend to council an effective regulatory approach to protect all residential shorelines. We believe a shoreline preservation bylaw would be most effective. There are also some supporting measures which we recommend that can be taken quite quickly. We know you have a planning consultant working to update your site plan control bylaw. So please take the opportunity to make the new bylaw apply to all waterfront properties. You can include protection of natural shorelines in the action plan being developed to support your strategic plan. And please keep protection of the 30-meter setback zone top of mind in your everyday decision-making. For rebuilds, you could require that new structures be moved back from the water 30 meters or as far as the lot will allow, and require naturalization of 75% of the new setback area. Reinforce this when rezoning applications and minor variances are being considered for waterfront properties. Next, please. So we recognize that additional planning and enforcement resources will be needed. Your budget process is starting, so please allocate funds to develop and implement regulation. Waterfront properties provide a big chunk of the township's tax revenue, and we believe that a greater proportion of this revenue needs to be invested in protecting shorelands and the health of our lakes. This is needed to ensure the health of both humans and wildlife, and because healthy lakes are one of the township's most valuable assets, as Roz mentioned earlier. So please take action today and pass the motion we've suggested. Our lakes need your help now. We look forward to seeing a staff report, hopefully by early spring, and we'd be happy to have further discussions with your staff and consultants as necessary. Thank you for your attention, and thank you, Martina. And finally, thank you, Christina Coulter, for helping us understand the new provincial legislation and its implications for shoreline protection by the township.
Thank you very much, both Roz and Lois. Council, discussion, questions, comments? Councilor
Yeah,
Johnston.
only come to the chair.
Yeah.
No, I think most of us are in favor of this. So I recommend that we would get it brought back to council with a bylaw that we can discuss and put some teeth to this. I think it's like right now, we walk down the lakes, all you see is stone. You don't see too much shoreline. And therefore, a lot of it's already been done that we can't really do too much about. But I do think bylaw in the future would be a good thing for the environment. I always have some concerns about trees. You know, like there's some areas that they say you can't do in tree removal. Well, one thing with the trees is that when you see some of these storms go by and see the damage they do, I experienced that. To say every tree must stand, you know, I'm totally against that. Sometimes you've got to move some trees, but I mean, I think we can do it in the proper way. Anyway, I'd like to make a motion. The staff would bring something back to council for a future bylaw.
Okay, Councilor Johnson, I will come back to you for the motion. I saw a lot of hands go up, so I just want to make sure that if there are any other questions on it, that's okay. And then in order, I think I've grabbed it here. We have Councilor Report, Councilor Watt. Did you have your, no? Deputy Mayor Nelson, and then you, okay. All right, thank you. So Councilor Report, and then Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Super, thank you. Through you, Mayor Watson, Roz, and Lois, thank you very much for the presentation. Definitely, clear water and good lakes are one of the township's most valuable assets. So I really appreciate the work that you've put into this. It's always good to see a lot of community involvement in these types of projects as well, which I know is pretty evident with the $1.5 million purchase here not too long ago. So again, thank you for the presentation. Councillor Johnson stole my motion away from me because that was going to be my suggestion as well. The timeline in particular, I think, when we talk about the motion is pretty important. If we can have staff get back to us pretty quickly on this, just because construction season is coming up in 6 months from now, sometime in the spring. And if we had something that was kind of comprehensive and made sense for people, it would prevent some additional damage from happening during construction season. So again, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Councilor Report, Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Thank you, ladies, for your, through the mayor. Thank you, ladies, for your presentation. I, on the other hand, cannot support this. And I'll give you my reasons why. We are over-regulated to death. We have so many regulations right now. And to tell people when they come and purchase $1 million properties on the lake that they can't do what they kind of want to do. We already got so many regulations that they got to stay back from the lake, that all the regulations that are in place for people to develop on the lakes. And if I look at it, I think we've missed the whole barn door. The barn door is already open. I look at your map and what is there? How much of the lake is left of shoreline? Not very much. There's only, and you've already bought up. So, don't get me wrong, I'm not meaning that this is a bad thing, but, and you've raised the money on shoreline that yous are protecting, but the rest of it, I think we're too late. It's already, the barn door's already been open, and to cause staff to go through a bylaw that imposes on our lake people, I can tell you there's very few people that I talk to that I think want more red tape in trying to build a house, build a cottage, upgrade their cottage, do that. And a lot of times, I'm gonna say this, I mightn't be very popular for this, but I'm gonna say this. So a lot of people at the lake, they get their piece of heaven and then they want to stop everybody else from doing anything else on the lake. And I'm in disagreement on that. And that's my whole point of view on it. And I'm sorry, I do appreciate the work that they do. I do believe that we do need good quality water and we want to repeat that. But I don't know whether, I think we're too late. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chair Member. Thank you, ladies, for the presentation. Much appreciated. I've been to a few of the meetings that the environmental council had. I was up to Camp Orville when they did the shoreline, stuff like that. Some great work done there. I do appreciate that. Thanks very much. I have a question to staff that maybe not have an answer at the moment, stuff like that, but it's always something that comes up. How much jurisdiction does the township have on shoreline compared to Trans Severn, compared to Orcas, compared to whatever? Like, everybody seems to, if there's bits and pieces we own, but they own, somebody else owns. How do we differentiate in there, or do we even know who owns what, who doesn't, and how much jurisdiction do we have on that shoreline? In what areas?
Ms. Coulter, care to field that one?
Thank you, Mayor Watson, through you to Councillor Watt. Yes, the township does have jurisdiction along shorelines, especially where it is private property. But you're also correct that there are multiple agencies responsible for, so if it's on the Trans Severn waterway, if it's a smaller inland lake, then it might be the Conservation Authority. And always it can be the township. So we do have provisions in our official plan and our zoning bylaw regulating development within 30 meters of the shorelines. But yeah, to answer your question, we do have the ability to regulate in that area.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing nothing, then Councillor Johnston, I'll throw back over to you if you're still trying to take that motion.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Yes, I still would like to make the motion that we get staff to go through what's been on in the past and come back with some recommendation, whether it be for discussion first and then the bylaw after, whatever, but I think we need to look at this very seriously.
Is that okay? And I'm going to look at you, Councillor Report, because you did comment that you stole the motion right out of your mouth. Does that sound like that's the case?
Through you, Mayor Watson, yes, that is entirely the case, so I would be happy to second this.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? Then I will ask for the vote. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Lois, Ross, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it and look forward to some report coming back in the future. On to item number 9. We don't have any public comment period or no registrations for public comment. Under staff reports, the report and capital project status report. Council, any questions on the report? Seeing heads shaking, I have one question then, since no one else is typing in, and this through to Mr. Hellman. The septic reinspection program I see is on the report to come back sometime in fall of 2024. I know we're running out of meetings. Are we expecting that still to come forward in fall?
We are, Madam Mayor, we finalizing our report on that. We should see it before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Councilor Johnson.
One question, if we know anymore, but our buildings that we're planning on developing the firewall and the worship permit. If there's anything there, because we're doing the budget soon, and we need to know as year by year it keeps going up, so I was wondering where we stand on it.
Mr. Davis.
I'm happy to field that question through the mayor to Councilor Johnston. We anticipate further information coming forward at the next report related to that proposed public works.
The next meeting, right?
Yes. Further information. We're not maybe not being there yet, but there'll be plenty of information for you to take in.
Any other questions from council on the report? Seeing nothing, I'll just take a motion to receive that. Councilor Watt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? And that carries. 2025 budget update, and that is coming from Mr. Kramer. Over to you, sir.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Couple of things to look at in this report. So first is the schedule. Essentially looking to push the budget back by it's approximately a month. The reasons for this are twofold. I'd say the original schedule was planned with the assumption that the CAO is going to be, the new CAO is going to be here in the summer. You know, this is Todd's first meeting, and I think it's prudent to give him an opportunity to get caught up before we present the budget. Secondly, we are working on incorporating the asset management findings, the asset management plan, and that's taking a little bit more work to make those results meaningful and get those into the budget than what was expected. And I would say it's my opinion that this new schedule is still in line with historical dates and dates of budgets for other municipalities. It was brought to my attention that there was a conflict with the first presentation, first draft presentation. And so we are proposing to make those dates Tuesday, January 7th at 10 a.m. and Thursday, January 9th. Not looking for council to give 100% certainty right now. If you do have a conflict with those dates, just message the clerk as soon as you can. But those are the new proposed dates based on receiving some feedback earlier today. So second item in the report, we did receive communication from the OPP regarding their 2025 financial billing. We were notified that there would be a 20% increase in their annual billing. This represents a 2.78% tax increase for the township. The only other thing to note on this topic is, you know, they were intended to present the financial report in their budget to all municipalities a couple weeks ago, and then they canceled the presentations kind of at the last minute. So I don't have any insight into why those meetings were canceled, but I also don't have any further information than what it has been attached to this report. There hasn't been any further communication. So at this point, council or staff is looking to council for some direction. At one of the last meetings in June, we did approve that we would present the budget at September inflation, at September CPI. That number ended up being 1.6%. So if we do include and proceed with that target, staff will be required to present cuts to other municipal services if we include the OPP increase at 2.78%. So any direction on that would be approved as we, spend the next 6 weeks finalizing the draft of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. So I'm hearing, council, there's probably two decisions that we need to make here. The first is to approve the proposed modified budget timeline, and then the second is an amount. So you're saying that's not going to be in the timeline? Okay, so Councillor Watt is making a motion to accept the new timeline. Anyone want to second that? Councillor Johnston will second that. Any discussions or questions on that portion? I just have one question, Mr. Kramer, as it relates to the timelines. We mentioned the new dates, January 6th and 9th, I believe. I'm just trying to pull my calendar and look at the report at the same time. So it's just those 2 dates that we would be looking at modifying in the report. The rest would remain the same. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Now let's talk about the levy increase and OPP 20% increase in policing costs. Council? Councillor Johnson and then Councillor Verboord.
I'm making a comment. Now you were sitting on that board there. I mean, that is unacceptable. I don't know how much power we got, or any power, or a lot of power. I don't know. I don't know. That puts it way out of whack for them. But it's hard to comment. I mean, I'm totally against it, but I don't know what power we got. I mean, I'm all for policing. I went down the states, but I'm all for policing. But I'm sure we just, like, how can we come up 20% 1 year?
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Johnston. Since you referenced the Police Services Detachment Board and my role there, I'll just mention briefly that we've met twice now as a detachment board. We're probably one of the only boards, newly formed detachment boards, of course, because this is an amalgamated board, newly amalgamated board since April. We're one of the few boards in the province, I'm told, that has actually started meeting. So it's been difficult, to get a read on it from the board level. Certainly the detachment board, when it comes to budget, even historically, when we had our own police services board, they weren't presenting a budget to us necessarily for approval at the board level. It was more of a, here's your bill, and pay it. I can't, like Mr. Kramer had said, the comments in terms of the rationale for the increase, there's lots of speculation as to why those increases are in place, and some of that is related to labor negotiations that were carried forward. But we don't have those details because, as Mr. Kramer noted, they canceled the webinar. So fair comments. The board isn't scheduled to meet again until, I believe, December 2nd is our next detachment board meeting. And I will take your comments back to board.
Very serious.
We have Councillor Verboord, then Deputy Mayor Nelson, and Councillor Watt.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Watson. Just in terms of approach, I think the best course of action at this point is to use the September CPI for all items on the budget, with the exception of the OPP. And at this point, just go with the OPP's numbers for the purpose of preparing the budget. And ideally, we will get some feedback from the OPP in terms of how they arrived at that, and what can be done to bring that down to a more manageable increase.
Okay, Councillor Verboord, so is that what you are making a motion on?
Yes, I will make a motion that we use the September CPI of 1.6% as the base for all budget items, excluding the OPP. And the OPP amount would be based on an amount provided by them.
Okay. Thank you for that. Does anyone want to second that motion? No, that's right. No. Does anyone want to second that motion?
Through you, Mayor Watson, the rationale behind that is I would like to see staff continue their work. The OPP is a one line item on the budget. There's no need to delay everything else from getting completed.
Okay, thank you for that.
Some comment?
I have comments, but nobody's seconding it.
No.
Councillor Watt's going to second it for discussion. So we do have a seconder. Now, the speaking order, Deputy Mayor Nelson, you were next in the speaking order, so if you want to go ahead and pick it up from there.
Yeah, I like your thought process, Adam, but I believe we need staff to come back with, we have asset management to deal with. And that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's some other stuff that you just can't place a percentage on everything that comes in. And I think we're gonna need staff to actually come back and to put a total commitment just on a percentage for our budget. I don't really agree with that. And I think we need staff to present that with us. And I want to echo what everybody else was saying also with this, the police services, like 20% increase, like who gets that? I don't get it. I don't get where they get off it thinking that they can actually increase 20% for their services for what we get. I'm very appalled at our police services that, and I'd like that to go back to them. That I think it's unreasonable, very unreasonable. That at this stage in the game to come back with a 20% increase, I don't know. Maybe it's time to get Barney Fife and let him run the streets. I don't know. I can tell you, I think we could do it cheaper.
I will make note of your comments and take it back to the board. Just to echo what was in Mr. Kramer's report, it's not just a Douro-Dummer increase, right? It is across the province.
I understand.
35%. I'm not saying 20% we're getting off easy, but I know other municipalities are burdening a much more significant proposed increase as well. Mr. Kramer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor, just to comment on the budget approach. So, I do want to highlight that what the budget is presented at, and the strategy will be essentially to present a budget at the target, but we will be outlining and highlighting items that didn't make the cut, essentially. And they will be outlined as such, and then it will be council's prerogative of what they do with those decisions, for those items.
Thanks, Sean.
Councillor Watt, you still had your hand up? Okay.
Thank you, through Madam. Yeah, I second that for discussion, which I do appreciate that we follow the order, rules here. I'm not in favor, as Treasurer Kramer said, we may have to look at some that we won't be able to support, things that we've done, cut back and stuff. We can't do that. I mean, once we've done something, once we put it in place, I don't see the fact that we can cut something back, or eliminate something, or not do the same as we did last year. We always look forward to getting better in what we do, not getting less. I know there's a cost associated with everything, but I would like to see something come back from staff, just give us kind of an outline of, okay, here's what we're looking at. Go with the 1.6 to start with, or whatever the heck it is, from September. And we don't have to stick with that. We can just see, okay, this is where we're sitting with it. This is what we're proposing. This is what we could have to cut. This is where, and keep the police together until we have more information on that, because we're flying blind on the police one. I mean, it could change. It could, maybe that's why they can the meetings with everybody, because there's been backlash on it, and they're going to change things. So until we really know that, we've got to keep that out of the equation. But for everything else, I'd say, yeah, staff, go ahead and work on what your proposal could be to council, and bring it back in stages if we have to say, okay, here's where we are so far. But there's no set commitment we can make at this moment, that's for sure.
Mr. Kramer, care to clarify on that, anything on that? Not to be on the spot, but, okay, so we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. Councillor Report for the second time on the motion.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Watson. Just to clarify, I think for some folks in the room, the 1.6% inflation number that's being used, that's not the target or the prescribed tax increase. That is essentially, if Mr. Kramer can kind of confirm with the budgeting process, we would be looking at whatever capital assets we're looking at buying in the year. Those get put in one bucket, And then staff wages, salaries, and benefits, that's a second bucket because those increases are based on OMER's calculations. And then in our third bucket are all of the other general types of operating expenses where the 1.6% would apply. Like the electricity costs will go up 1.5%. The cost of postage would go up 1.5 or 1.6%. And that's where staff are going to sit down with us in the budget process and go over the list of priorities, things that can be delayed a year or things that we need to do immediately. And just if I can get some clarification from Mr. Creamer on that, that's my my perception of the request here.
Mr. Creamer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Ward. At the end of previous budget cycles, I've received comments that there was no target for staff to achieve right from the onset, which I don't disagree with. There wasn't, and especially from a prescribed perspective from council. So this year, when I brought the report forward in June, I proposed an approach where we will work towards an overall target. That is not the ultimate increase, but the budget does get presented for an overall levy increase of that target. And then it kind of puts into conversation that what we are and are not able to do with that amount. That was the approach. We can change approaches. We still have time, given the first motion, but that was the original approach. Let me know if I clarified that.
Thank you, Mr. Creamer. Councilor Ward, any follow-up questions on that?
No, through you, Mayor Watson. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so again, we do have a motion that's on the floor. Before I call for the vote, I will speak to the motion. I think, oh, Councilor Johnson, did you have a comment on this? Sorry.
Well, through the chair, I just want to make a comment to the public. Like you mentioned it earlier, like our suggested increase was 20%. There are some areas that they're proposing 35%. So I'm just going to know that it's off the wall. That's all I'm coming to make.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. So the motion that is on the floor right now, just to be clear, is to move forward with the 1.6% increase target with the OPP costs separated out. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Yeah, okay. So my comments on the motion that's on the floor before I call vote is that, we in June had given staff direction of 1.6%. Like those were the parameters that we had established. We were then, very recently presented with this bill from the OPP, which is, if we still hold staff to that 1.6%, would require a decrease in services to offset that investment. And as noted, I'm just pulling from the report, would be a 1.18% decrease. So that's where we're getting to that, as you've noted, Councillor Watt, the possibility of cutting. So I believe what's coming forward is, staff are at this crossroads now saying, listen, you gave us this direction of 1.6. We're working towards 1.6. We've got this surprise bill. Now we've got to make some cuts if we're going to hit 1.6. So the motion that's on the floor, I support personally is as a sensible decision where we're saying, okay, let's assume 1.6 for everything except for police. Park police off to the side, although we know we're going to have to address it somehow, and maybe there's a last minute Hail Mary that comes forward, whether there's, some sort of discussions from the province to help offset those costs, or perhaps a reduction, or who knows. And there are lots of conversations happening around this very matter. So as we go through the process, at least council, or at least staff, can move forward with that 1.6% threshold that council had initially set in June that we all agreed to. And then we can address the OPP costing separately as it comes forward without reducing services, but also keeping a target in mind. So we're not going to be looking at a 2.78% increase on the macro or more potentially. So for that reason, I'm going to support the motion that's on the floor, and at this point, I will call for the vote. All in favor? So that motion fails. Where are we going with it, guys? Staff needs some parameters, right? Perhaps, Deputy Mayor Nelson, were you going to add
I
some?
was going to finesse something, I was going to finesse something.
Sure, if you'd like to try and.
I will, or, through you, Madam Mayor. I believe for staff, yes, we want them to come back with as low as budget as we can possibly get. There's no, there never has been any frivolous spending, other than when I see this 20%, it drives me crazy, but at the same time, I think we need to, there's each department and each item on a line by line item. Some things might be 3%, some things might be 5%, and an overall average, but it's let staff work with them numbers. It's nice to give them a guideline, but there's nothing frivolous that's going to come out from this from staff. And I think we need to see the true picture and then maybe make a decision on that. That's my comments on that. And then it's like, okay, maybe we go back to the drawing board and maybe it's look at services. That we might have to look at cutting some services. I don't know. But I think we need to give staff the time to present what it is. And knowing that we're looking at a maybe 1.6 increase, but I don't think that's even possible. I think we're probably looking at still the 3% inflation rate. That's my opinion. I don't think I'm too far off at a 3% inflation rate.
Mr. Davis.
Through the mayor and members of council. So I think I have a couple of observations and comments here. I think what the treasurer presented this evening sort of is in line with, or his goal was to sort of set a target within which we can direct staff to work within the parameters to work towards, recognizing that we don't want to cut service levels at this particular moment. I think our plan is to bring a budget forward that is sensible, that does not, at least initially, contemplate a decline in service, but also recognizes that we have some costs that are beyond our control, that are going to drive our budget forward at a certain level, whether that be local policing or recognizing some of our responsibilities related to asset management. And so, you know, I think what the clerk has proposed in terms of some language, I think is appropriate. Do you want to read that out, Martina?
So Madam Mayor, to you, Todd, the document I just showed you, this is the motion that was presented back in June.
Okay.
But I'm happy to read the June motion back here.
Just as a reminder, it might be helpful for council to remember what they agreed to in June, if that's appropriate.
Please do, thank you. There we go. Apologies for that technical difficulty. I didn't think I'd have to use the microphone.
Sorry.
So the resolution that was passed on June 4th, 2024 was resolution number 224. It was moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Watt. It reads that the report dated June 4th, 2024 regarding the 2025 budget schedule be received, and the budget schedule, including the 3 special meetings in November and December, be approved, and that council requests that staff prepare and present the 2025 budget with an increase equivalent to the September CPI, which can be amended by council after the first draft is presented. And that was carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, council. I see the hamsters are running. What are we gonna do? Hamsters, squirrels, steam engines, Councillor Verboort.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Watson. Thank you, Martina, for reading that out to us, because it kind of feels like the last 5 minutes made that discussion in June completely irrelevant. So I almost feel like asking if I can resurrect my last motion.
Procedurally?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it could be just considering a new motion, a slightly different wording.
There we go. So if you would like to make a new motion.
Yes,
with slightly different wording.
I would like to make a new motion that that staff work on the budget with the 1.6% target, and further provide staff direction that to remind them that this is a target, and we are to attempt to maintain service levels that are consistent with today. And furthermore, to exclude the OPP at this point from that target number.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I think we could be here forever debating back and forth. We have to, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. We have to provide direction somewhere for staff to start somewhere. So, this is a good starting point, and I really did, the thing that's kind of sweet to hear a little bit to also speak about this is that the comment about after the first draft presentation, the council still has the opportunity to change that. So that's a good thing for us. It kind of gives us a bit of a cushion to, because there's too much unknown right at the moment, but the 1.6, that's a good starting, and if our treasurer is happy with that, then I'm good to go.
Okay.
I will second those comments.
Okay. Any discussion on the new motion?
Yeah, through the chair. My only comment is that, for years and years and years and years, we always went to all the different groups and asked them to put forward a budget, work online to start. And therefore, I'm not, even though we made the motion for 1.6, I think we gotta kind of go back to reality, knowing, and they gotta know that, hey, it's tight, which seems to be always tight. But the thing is, with what's coming down the line, I don't even think we need to give them the option of 1.6. When you talk to the different sectors, I think, like you have in the past, that let them come down and suggest that they need this or that or whatever. Like we made comment that, someone might be fine, but hopefully maybe somehow around the line they can keep to where it was last year. So I mean, even though we made that motion before, I don't know that I'm in favor of giving them that opportunity right off the bat. So I think that's something, Paul, that you would have to kind of work with each department and start off where we are now, compared to always giving them the opportunity of going up that much. That's my concern. If some of them are going to go up by patrol and we like to what's going on.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. Mr. Kramer, do you want to pipe in?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Johnson. To be clear on our budget process, so I meet with each department. We review line by line each budget item. We make the changes as appropriate and as needed to reflect the service that has been requested by council and community, and to meet the needs of that department. So whether they're legislative changes, it's a pretty exhaustive process. Then I have all those individual meetings, I meet with all those individual departments, and then I bring it all together and see, based on all those requests and all those changes, where we sit. Most of the time, I think if we were to go back over the past few years of the budget, we kind of see 1 year where we're able to increase capital, and then an operating kind of requests and changes have stayed relatively the same. And then the next year it seems to kind of reverse. So usually what happens is based on all the capital that's needed as well, and then the funding sources available. It's not every department comes in at 1.6. It's a overall target. To keep service levels the same, likely what will happen is I need to look at capital funding. Because we are committed on a lot of operating commitments. And if the target is to make and keep service levels the same, then it will be capital where we need to look at certain projects. And then it will be a decision point at that time whether or not that capital project can be pushed off, delayed, canceled, whatever it may be. But it's an overall target. It is not a department by department target that we are looking for, or that was requested in the past, so that is now our proposed strategy.
Thank you for that clarification. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Manager.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I guess my comment, and Adam, yes, I support your motion, but I just don't want it to be cutting services without us knowing about what's happening with the budget and handcuffing staff. If you need the money to stay at the status quo, then if it comes back, that maybe certain stuff, maybe it comes in at 2.5%, or maybe it comes in at 2%. I don't know, but I don't know what that number will be when it's all done. But I don't want to, for the first round, I don't want to see staff handcuffed. That's my concern is that, oh, we got to get it down to, and I can tell you from being a former manager in this, making budgets up, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to stay at the status quo, especially when you have construction prices going at 12%. So if I look at and fuel prices and everything else, I think to get a full picture of it, I think we need staff to come back with that, maybe with that target in mind. Yes, that's a great, but don't be surprised if it comes back higher. That's my comment.
Fair enough. Councillor Watt for the second time.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And as we mentioned here a couple of times tonight, that we may have to delay something or put it off or wait till next year. I am not a big fan of that, and they will use our joint fire hall roads department building in particular, because it started out way back at $3 million, and now it's probably in excess of 12 to 15, kind of like that. So being pushed off. We don't want to do that as a council. We at least want to keep where we are, not push something off if we, unless it's an absolute dire kind of like that. But I really want to push towards the budget of trying to complete what we want to complete and get what we need to get and keep our residents happy.
Understood. Thank you very much. So we do have a motion that's on the floor. I will again echo my comments that I made earlier. It's important that staff have some sort of parameters to work within. Of course, at the end of the day, we're setting a target. We're not committing to a tax levy tonight, right? This is something that is going to come back to council, and we are going to have public input, and we are going to have an opportunity to go through it line by line should we choose, and make sure certain projects that are priority to council are included in the budget perspective. So, all right, all in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Good discussion. On to, where are we? Where am I? Committee minutes and other reports. We've got the public library board meeting minutes of September 10th. Just a motion on that. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries. We have the OPP Attachment Board meeting minutes of September 30th. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? That too carries. We have a number of items on correspondence action items. We'll take them one by one. We've got the Municipality of Waterloo resolution regarding solve the humanitarian crisis. What does council want to do with that?
Make a motion. Make a motion to receive.
A motion to receive from Councillor Johnston. And who would like to second that? Councillor Watt. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries. County of Douro-Dummer, our neighbors to the south, resolution regarding public sector salary disclosure.
Motion received.
A motion to receive from Deputy Mayor Nelson. Anyone want to second that? Councillor Watt. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Ontario, item 12.3, Ontario Good Roads Association resolution regarding the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. Council, what would you like to do? I'm like, are we all frozen? What are we doing? Deputy Mayor Nelson.
I'll make a motion to receive and support.
A motion to receive and support. Will anyone second that motion? Councillor Johnston, any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. 12.4, Ministry of Energy and Electrification, letter regarding Ontario's affordable energy future. Councillor Verboort.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and support.
Would you like to second that motion? Councillor Watt, any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. Well, that was easy. On to bylaws. We've got two before us. We'll do each one. Oh no, one before us because we did do 13.2. Thank you. So 2024-64, 13.1. A motion on that bylaw.
Make a motion to receive that bylaw.
Receive and approve. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. We're good. We have no reports from previous notice of motion, no notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Any announcements? Councillor Johnston.
Just announcement, people remember that Remembrance Day, very important. We're having a prayer run and starting around 11:45. So anybody can make it, school kids and everybody, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that. Any other announcements from council? Seeing nothing, we have no closed session. A motion on the confirming bylaw, please. Councillor Watt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? That carries. Just a couple of highlights on our next meetings. We have the community engagement event of council. That's tomorrow evening, starting at 6:30 at the town hall upstairs. And then our next regular council meeting is happening on November 19th. That's 2 Tuesdays from now. Finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you.